I asked a complete stranger to pretend to be my boyfriend at my ex's wedding, and I swear at that moment I thought I'd finally lost my mind. But if you've ever been humiliated so quietly, so politely that no one else noticed, you'll understand exactly why I did it. 3 sentences. That's all it took to ruin my morning. The wedding invitation sat on my kitchen table, thick paper soft gray embossed lettering that probably cost more than my groceries for the week. 8 weeks until the wedding. 8 weeks until Evan married the woman his family had always wanted him to choose. And, yes, he invited me. Not out of kindness, not for closure. He invited me so everyone could see that he'd leveled up. Yeah, message received. For 3 days, I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I already knew how this story ended. I'd lived the first half of it for 4 years. The slow glances from his parents. The comments that sounded harmless until you replayed them later. You're so independent. Your background must have been interesting. Evan will settle down properly someday. I was never cruelly rejected. I was politely tolerated. And somehow, that hurt worse. The breakup happened on a perfect spring afternoon. Bright sun, people laughing, dogs barking, life going on like mine wasn't quietly collapsing. Evan chose a public cafe, the kind where no one raises their voice. He held his coffee with both hands like it was a shield and told me his family had expectations. That Madison understood his world better. That this wasn't about me, but also somehow it absolutely was. I remember nodding like a mature adult while something inside me cracked clean in half. So when that invitation arrived, something ugly woke up in me. Not jealousy. Pride. Rage mixed with embarrassment. The thought of walking into that wedding alone, feeling eyes sweep over me calculating what went wrong, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't. I wanted to walk in looking unbothered, thriving, chosen. Even if it wasn't real. That's how I found myself in a downtown hotel lobby watching a man I'd never met type calmly on a laptop like the world owed him silence. He wasn't flashy. No loud suit, no phone calls, just confidence. The kind that doesn't need witnesses. I watched him for 20 minutes rehearsing lines in my head, talking myself out of it, then back into it. Finally, I walked over before I could stop myself. I told him the truth. All of it. Too fast, too honest. That my ex was getting married. That I'd been invited out of spite. That I needed someone convincing. I even offered to pay him, which was ridiculous because I couldn't really afford it. My face burned. I waited for laughter. Security. Anything. Instead, he closed his laptop and asked my name. Rachel, I said. Daniel, he replied like we were just meeting for coffee, not discussing the most unhinged favor of my life. When I finally asked the question, will you come with me to my ex's wedding? The air felt heavy. He didn't look at me with pity. He looked at me like he understood. After a moment, he said yes. Just like that. No money, no conditions, just honesty. I didn't trust it. Of course I didn't. That night, I Googled him. Founder. Tech CEO. Self-made. Quietly powerful. Which only raised one question. Why me? Why agree to something so messy I assumed there had to be an angle? Our first meeting was strictly business. We chose a backstory. How we met. How long we'd been together. He was calm, organized, almost clinical. And that helped. It reminded me this wasn't romance. It was survival. When I told him why Evan left, I didn't soften it. I didn't pretend I was okay. I told him how small I'd been made to feel. How invisible. That's when Daniel told me his own story. Years earlier, he'd been invited to his ex's wedding and went alone thinking it proved he'd moved on. Instead, he became a prop in her victory lap. I won't let that happen to you, he said. Not gently. Firmly. Something about that stuck. As the wedding got closer, we practiced. Smiles. Small touches. Inside jokes. The choreography of a couple. And somewhere between rehearsals and late dinners, something shifted. He listened to me. Actually listened. Asked about my work. Remembered details. Didn't interrupt. I realized how rare that felt. The morning of the wedding, I almost backed out. I stared at myself in the mirror wearing a dress I'd agonized over. Not too flashy, not too plain. Something that said I'm fine without begging anyone to believe it. When Daniel knocked on my door perfectly calm, perfectly steady, I felt my spine straighten, like borrowing his confidence for a moment. The venue was exactly what I expected. Expensive, controlled, beautiful in a way that didn't feel warm. Evan's mother spotted me immediately. So did Evan. His surprise flickered, then curiosity, then something else when Daniel introduced himself. Recognition, confusion, calculation. It was subtle, but I saw it. Madison smiled at me like we were old friends. "I've heard so much about you," she said. The kind of sentence that sounds kind until you hear the subtext. Before I could respond, Daniel stepped in, praising my work with genuine enthusiasm. Real facts, real accomplishments, things Evan had never bothered to remember. I watched Evan's expression shift just slightly. It was the first crack. During the ceremony, something unexpected happened. I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt distance. Like watching a movie I used to love but had outgrown. When Daniel's hand brushed mine, it wasn't for show. It was grounding. At the reception, Evan's mother approached us. She asked questions designed to sort people into boxes: family, background, status. Daniel answered calmly, proudly, without apology. No defensiveness, no posturing, just truth. I watched her struggle to process it, and for the first time in years I didn't feel smaller under her gaze. Later, out on the balcony away from the noise, I finally exhaled. I thanked Daniel for getting me through it. He asked if that was all I wanted, and that's when the truth slipped out. I wasn't thinking about Evan anymore. I was thinking about how real this felt, how seen I felt. That's when Daniel told me he'd noticed me months before. At an event, listening, speaking passionately. He hadn't approached because he assumed someone like me wouldn't take someone like him seriously. I laughed because the irony almost hurt. When he asked what would happen after today, I didn't hesitate. I didn't want the pretending to end. 6 months later, we weren't pretending. A year later, we stood in a different room making promises that didn't need witnesses to be real. And the strangest part, I never once felt the need to prove anything again. So here's my question for you. Was what I did petty? Or was it self-preservation? Have you ever been underestimated so quietly that no one noticed except you? Tell me what you think. I want to hear your take.